The Kelthari Empire had ruled the stars for 3,000 years. They had conquered over 200 species across the galaxy. They had burned worlds and enslaved billions. No one had ever stopped them. No one had ever tried. High Prelate Voron sat on his throne made of bones from 100 different species. He was old, even by Kelthari standards. His gray skin was covered with scars from ancient battles. His forearms rested on the armrests of his throne as he watched the holographic display before him. "What is this world?" he asked. Commander Dral stepped forward and bowed low. "It is called Earth, my prelate. A small planet in a distant star system. Our probes have been watching them for 50 cycles, and they are primitive, my lord. They have only recently discovered space travel. Their ships are slow. Their weapons are basic. They fight among themselves constantly." Dral smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "They will fall within days." Voron leaned forward. On the display, he could see the blue and green planets spinning slowly. It looked peaceful. It looked weak. "Send them the message," Voron commanded. "Give them 1 cycle to surrender. If they refuse, destroy them all." Ambassador Lyra stood in the corner of the throne room. She was younger than most in the court, and she had studied many species before their conquest. Something about this world worried her. She had read the reports. These humans had a strange history. They had fought 2 massive wars against themselves that killed millions. They had built weapons that could destroy their own cities. They seemed to enjoy conflict. "My prelate," Lyra said carefully. "Perhaps we should study them more before we attack." Voron turned his cold eyes toward her. "Study them? They are insects. We do not study insects. We crush them." The message was sent. On Earth, it was a normal Tuesday morning, when the sky changed forever. The message appeared on every screen, every phone, every television across the planet. It was translated into every human language simultaneously. "People of Earth, you have been chosen for conquest by the Kelthari Empire. You will surrender your planet, your resources, and yourselves to our control. You have 1 day to comply. If you refuse, your world will burn. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. Or die." Panic spread like fire. People ran through the streets. Governments collapsed into chaos. Religious leaders called it the end of days. Military forces around the world went to high alert. But what could they do? How could they fight an enemy from the stars? Deep beneath a mountain in Korea, Admiral Sung Ho watched the message on a small screen. He was an old man with gray hair and steady hands. He had fought in wars. He had seen death, but he had never imagined anything like this. Around him, the secret command center buzzed with activity. This facility had been built 30 years ago, after Earth first intercepted strange signals from deep space. The signals were warnings, sent by a dying species. They spoke of the Kelthari. They spoke of conquest. They spoke of extinction. Earth had been preparing ever since. "Contact Captain Han Tae," Admiral Sung said calmly. "Tell him it is time." Captain Han Tae was in a jungle on the other side of the world when he received the call. He was a tall man, with short black hair and eyes that had seen too much. He led a special unit that officially did not exist. They handled problems that no one else could handle. "Understood," Tae said into his radio. "We are coming home." He turned to his team. Lieutenant Una Park was already packing her gear. She was his second in command. A tactical genius who could plan a battle in her head faster than most computers. Sergeant Wu Dai sat cleaning his weapon, a massive rifle that most soldiers could not even lift. He was a quiet man, who spoke with his actions, not his words. Private Jinsu, the youngest of the group, was checking her medical supplies. She had joined the team only a year ago, but she had already saved all their lives at least once. "What is happening, Captain?" Yuna asked. "The aliens are here," Tae replied. "The ones we have been training to fight. They want us to surrender." Wu Dai looked up from his rifle. "And will we?" Captain Tae almost smiled. "What do you think? They called themselves the Iron Wolves. They were the best soldiers Earth had ever produced. They had trained for years to fight an enemy they had never seen. Now, That enemy was coming. The United Earth Council met in emergency session. Leaders from every nation argued and shouted. Some wanted to surrender. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to pray. Admiral Sung Ho stood before them all. "I understand your fear," he said. "But I must tell you something that has been kept secret for 30 years. We knew they were coming. We have been preparing. We have weapons they have never seen. We have soldiers they cannot imagine, and we have something they will never understand." "What is that?" the president of the European Federation asked. "We are human," Admiral Sung replied. "We have spent our entire history fighting each other. We have perfected the art of war. We have survived ice ages, plagues, and ourselves. We are the most stubborn, violent, and creative species this planet has ever produced. And now, for the first time in history, we have a common enemy." He looked at the faces around the room. Fear was turning to something else. Something harder. "They want us to kneel," Admiral Sung continued. "They expect us to beg. But we will not. We will show them what happens when you threaten Earth." In the Kelthari fleet, Commander Draal waited for Earth's response. He expected surrender. He expected fear. He expected begging. What he received was silence. "They have not responded?" Draal asked in confusion. "No, Commander, nothing." Draal frowned. Every species responded. Every species begged for mercy. Every species tried to negotiate, but the humans sent nothing, only silence. Far below, on the blue planet, Captain Han Tae arrived at the secret base. He walked through halls filled with soldiers and scientists. He saw weapons that had never been used. He saw ships that had never flown. Admiral Sung Ho met him at the command center. "Captain Tae, you know why you are here?" "Yes, Admiral. The Iron Wolves will be our first line of attack. You will board their ships. You will learn their weaknesses. You will make them bleed." Captain Tae nodded. Behind him, his team stood ready. Lieutenant Yuna Park, Sergeant Wu Dae, Private Jin Soo. They were not afraid. They had trained their whole lives for this moment. "Admiral," Yuna said, "they have 500 ships. We have never fought anything like this. How do we win?" Admiral Sung looked at her with eyes full of steel. "We do what humans have always done, Lieutenant. We adapt, we fight, we survive, and we never, ever give up." Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere among them, the Kelthari fleet was moving closer. They thought this would be easy. They thought humans were weak. They had never been more wrong. The Kelthari fleet moved through the darkness of space like a swarm of metal locusts. 500 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Commander Draal stood on the bridge of his cruiser and watched Earth grow larger on his view screen. "Beautiful planet," he said to his officers. "It will make a fine addition to the Empire." Beautiful planet. It will make a fine addition to the Empire. "Commander, we are passing the 4th planet now. The one they call Mars." Draal nodded. "Continue forward. Launch the first wave of fighters when we reach their moon." He had done this many times before. The pattern was always the same. Arrive in force. Destroy any resistance. Accept the surrender. Move the slaves to processing centers. It was simple. It was efficient. It had worked for 3,000 years, but as the fleet passed the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, something strange happened. "Commander, energy readings from the asteroid field." Draal turned sharply. "What kind of energy readings?" Before anyone could answer, the first asteroid exploded. But it was not destruction. It was transformation. The rock fell away to reveal a massive weapon platform, hidden for decades, waiting for this moment. Then another asteroid opened, and another, and another. "Impossible," Draal whispered. The weapon platforms fired. They shot tungsten rods the size of buildings at speeds that made light itself seem slow. The rods tore through Kelthari shields like paper. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes of fire and metal. Evasive action. All ships. Evasive action. But there was no escape. The human weapons had been positioned perfectly. They caught the fleet in a crossfire that no commander could have predicted. In the first 5 minutes, 47 Kelthari ships were destroyed. Draal gripped his command chair as his own ship shook from a nearby explosion. "Return fire! Destroy those platforms!" The Kelthari weapons lashed out, and some platforms were destroyed. But the damage was done. The fleet that had never known defeat was bleeding. Far behind the battle, a small human shuttle moved through the chaos. Captain Hante sat in the pilot's seat, guiding the ship toward a damaged Kelthari cruiser. The cruiser was still firing, but its engines were dead. It was the perfect target. Approaching the hull, Lieutenant Unipark reported, "I am reading life signs inside. Many of them." "Good," Captain Tay said. "More information for us." Sergeant Wu Day checked his weapon one last time. It was a rifle designed specifically for this mission, capable of punching through Kelthari armor. Private Jin Su carried medical supplies and a smaller weapon. She looked nervous but determined. The shuttle attached to the cruiser's hull. Wu Day used a cutting torch to create an opening. Atmosphere rushed out, but the humans wore sealed suits. They climbed inside. The interior of the Kelthari ship was dark and strange. The walls were organic, almost alive. The air smelled like copper and decay. Warning lights flashed red in an alien pattern. "Move fast," Captain Tay ordered. "We need their navigation data. That will tell us where they come from and how to hurt them." They moved through the corridors like ghosts. The first Kelthari soldier they encountered was alone, checking a damaged console. Wu Day killed him before he could make a sound. The alien was tall, nearly 3 meters, with 4 arms and thick armor covering his body, but a human bullet through the head worked just as well as it always had. "Big," Jinsu whispered, looking at the body. "Big just means more to hit," Wu Day replied. They continued deeper into the ship. Soon, they found what they were looking for: the navigation center. But it was guarded. 20 Kelthari soldiers stood in formation, weapons ready. They had heard the fighting outside. They were waiting. "We cannot go through them," Yuna said quietly. "We need another way." Captain Tay studied the room through his scanner. "Sergeant Wu, can you hold that corridor?" Wu Day looked at the long hallway behind them. "How long?" 5 minutes. The big man nodded slowly. "I can hold it for 10. It was not a boast. It was a statement of fact. Wu Day took position in the corridor. He set up his rifle on a piece of debris and waited. Captain Tay, Yuna, and Jin Su found another route, crawling through maintenance tunnels that the Kelthari were too large to use. When the Kelthari soldiers came to investigate the intruders, they found Wu Day waiting for them. He fired with perfect accuracy. Each shot killed. Each movement was efficient. The aliens charged at him with blades and energy weapons. But he did not move. He did not flinch. He simply kept firing. Bodies piled in the corridor. The Kelthari could not understand. How could one creature fight like this? How could one soldier hold against 20? The answer was simple. He was human. Meanwhile, Captain Tay reached the navigation center from above. He dropped through a ceiling panel and landed among the surprised Kelthari guards. His knife moved faster than thought. Yuna followed, her pistol taking down targets with mechanical precision. Jin Su covered the door. In 30 seconds, the room was clear. "Download everything," Tay ordered. Yuna connected her device to the alien computer. The data flowed like water, strange symbols and star maps that would take months to fully understand. But they had it. They had what they came for. "We need to go," Jin Su called. "More are coming." They ran back through the ship, collecting Wu Day on the way. The big sergeant was bleeding from a wound on his arm, but he was still standing. Behind him, the corridor was filled with dead Kelthari. 19, he said simply. They escaped through the hole they had made. The shuttle detached and flew back toward Earth as the damaged cruiser finally exploded behind them. In the larger battle, things were changing. The Kelthari fleet, shocked by their losses, began to pull back. They retreated past Jupiter, trying to regroup. For the first time in 1,000 years, they had lost an engagement. Commander Drawl stood on his bridge, surrounded by damage reports and casualty lists. 62 ships destroyed. Thousands dead. And they had not even reached Earth. "This is impossible," he muttered. "They are primitives. They should have fallen in hours." His communication officer approached nervously. "Commander, High Prelate Voron demands a report." Drawl closed his eyes. He would have to tell his master that they had failed. That humans, of all creatures, had made them bleed. Back on Earth, Admiral Sung Ho received Captain Tay's report with something close to a smile. "We hurt them," Tay said. "We hurt them badly." "Good. What did you learn?" "They are strong and well-equipped. But they fight like they have never lost. They do not know how to adapt. They do not expect resistance." Admiral Sung nodded. "Then we will teach them. We will teach them what it means to fight humanity." The news spread across Earth. The aliens could be beaten. They could be hurt. They could die. Fear began to transform into something else. Hope, anger, determination. In cities around the world, people stopped running. They started preparing. The Iron Wolves returned to base as heroes, but there was no time for celebration. Captain Tay knew this was only the beginning. The Kelthari would return with more ships, more soldiers, more weapons. The next battle would be harder. But for the first time, humanity knew the truth. They were not helpless. They were not weak. They were the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever seen. And the war had only just begun. The news traveled faster than light. Through secret channels and whispered messages, through smugglers and spies. The story spread across the galaxy. A small blue planet had fought back. A primitive species had made the Kelthari bleed. On 1,000 conquered worlds, slaves lifted their heads and listened. The Kelthari were not unbeatable. Someone had proven it. On the frozen mining world of Thal 7, a group of alien workers gathered in secret. They were Norvani, a species conquered 200 years ago. Their scales were pale from generations without sunlight. Their eyes had grown large from working in dark mines. "Is it true?" one of them asked. "The humans really destroyed Kelthari ships?" 62 ships, another replied. "I heard it from a guard who was drunk on victory wine." He was laughing at first. Then he stopped laughing. 2. The Norvani looked at each other. For the first time in 2 centuries, they felt something strange. Something dangerous. Hope. On the Kelthari homeworld, High Prelate Voron did not share this hope. He sat in his throne room, listening to Commander Drawl's report with growing rage. His 4 hands gripped the armrests until his claws drew blood from the ancient bone. 62 ships, Voron repeated slowly, against primitives. Drawl knelt on the floor, his head bowed. "They had hidden weapons, my prelate. Weapons we did not expect. They were more prepared than our intelligence suggested." "Your intelligence," Voron corrected coldly, "was wrong." Ambassador Lyra stood nearby, silent and watching. She had warned them. She had told them the humans were different. But no one had listened. "The humans boarded one of our cruisers," Drawl continued. "A small team. 4 soldiers. They killed dozens of our warriors and stole navigation data." Voron's eyes widened. "They have our navigation data?" "Yes, my prelate." The throne room fell silent. Navigation data meant the humans now knew the locations of Kelthari supply lines. They knew where the slave stations were. They knew the weaknesses of the Empire. Voron stood slowly. He was ancient and terrible. A warrior who had killed thousands with his own hands. "Send 3 times the force. Send 1,500 ships. I want that planet burned to ash. I want every human dead. Bring me the skulls of their leaders." "It will take time to assemble such a fleet," Drawl said carefully. "Then do it quickly." "And Drawl?" "Drawl, yes. My prelate, do not fail me again." Ambassador Lyra stepped forward. "My prelate, may I speak?" Voron turned his cold gaze to her. "What?" "I have studied the humans extensively. Their history is unlike any species we have conquered. They have fought wars that killed millions of their own kind. They have developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet. They have survived ice ages, diseases, and disasters that would have ended most species. And through it all, they have never stopped fighting. Your point, Ambassador? My point is that sending more ships may not be enough. These creatures do not think like us. They do not fight like us. They do not surrender like us. We should consider negotiation. Voron laughed. It was a cold, terrible sound. Negotiate? With insects? The Kelthari do not negotiate. We conquer. That is what we have always done. That is what we will always do. Lyra bowed her head. As you wish, my prelate. But as she walked away, she wondered. What would happen when an unstoppable empire met a species that refused to stop? Back on Earth, Admiral Sung Ho studied the stolen navigation data with his war council. The holographic display showed hundreds of star systems, thousands of stations, millions of ships. The scale of the Kelthari Empire was almost beyond comprehension. They are so large, one general whispered. How can we possibly win? We cannot defeat them in open war, Admiral Sung admitted. Not yet. But we can hurt them. We can make them bleed. We can inspire others to rise against them. Captain Han Tae stood at the edge of the room, studying the display. Lieutenant Yuna Park stood beside him, her tactical mind already working through possibilities. Here, Yuna said, pointing to 3 stations along a supply route. These stations process resources for their entire Western fleet. If we destroy them, their ships will run out of fuel and ammunition within months. It is behind enemy lines, Admiral Sung observed. Deep behind enemy lines. Yes, sir. The Admiral looked at Captain Tae. Can you do it? Tae studied the map for a long moment. The distance was enormous. The defenses were strong. The chances of survival were small. We captured a Kelthari ship, he said finally. We can modify it, fly it back into their space. They will not expect humans to come to them. It is a one-way mission, Admiral Sung said quietly. You may not come back. Captain Tae turned to his team. Sergeant Wu Dai nodded without hesitation. Private Jin Su swallowed hard but stood firm. Lieutenant Yuna Park was already calculating fuel consumption and attack vectors. We knew what we signed up for, Tae said. We will do what needs to be done. Dr. Hana Kang, the military scientist who had decrypted the navigation data, approached the group. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and quick hands. I want to come with you. Doctor, this is a combat mission. I know. But you will need someone who can read their computers. Someone who can understand their communications. I have been studying the Kelthari language for years. I can help. Captain Tae looked at Admiral Sung, who nodded slightly. Welcome to the Iron Wolves, Doctor. The captured Kelthari cruiser was modified in secret over the next 3 weeks. Human weapons were hidden behind Kelthari panels. Human computers were integrated with alien systems. The ship looked exactly like any other Kelthari vessel. But inside, it was a weapon of war. On the day of departure, Admiral Sung came to see them off. The entire team stood at attention. Captain Han Tae, Lieutenant Yuna Park, Sergeant Wu Dai, Private Jin Su, and Dr. Hana Kang. You are the best soldiers Earth has ever produced, Admiral Sung said. You go into the darkness not for glory or revenge, but for the survival of our species. Whatever happens out there, know that your planet is proud of you. Captain Tae saluted. We will make them remember this day. Admiral, the ship launched into the black void of space. Through the viewport, Tae watched Earth grow smaller and smaller, until it was just a tiny blue dot among millions of stars. He made a silent promise. They would return. Somehow, they would return. In the corridors of the ship, Yuna found him staring at the stars. You are worried, she said. I am realistic. The odds are against us. The odds have always been against us. We are human. Bad odds are our specialty. Despite everything, Tae almost smiled. You are right. We have survived worse. Much worse. Ice ages, plagues, reality television. This time, he did smile. Thank you, Lieutenant. Thank me when we get home, Captain. The The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, and Earth disappeared behind them. Ahead lay enemy territory, danger beyond imagination, and a mission that could change the course of the war. The galaxy watched. The slaves whispered. The Kelthari prepared for revenge, and humanity went on the attack. The journey through Kelthari space took 17 days. Captain Hante spent most of that time studying enemy patrol patterns and memorizing the layout of their target. Lieutenant Una Park ran combat simulations until she could predict every possible outcome. Sergeant Wu Dai maintained the weapons and trained in the ship's small cargo bay. Private Jin Su organized her medical supplies and practiced emergency procedures. Dr. Hana Kang studied the Kelthari language until she could speak it almost fluently. They passed 3 enemy checkpoints without incident. The captured ship's identification codes worked perfectly. The Kelthari never suspected that the vessel carried their doom. The first target was a massive orbital station called Processing Center 12. It hung in space above a dead world. A metal monster that consumed resources from a dozen conquered planets. Ships came and went constantly, carrying raw materials in and refined goods out. It was the heart of the Kelthari supply network in this sector. Approaching the station now, Una reported. I am reading heavy defenses, gun platforms, patrol ships, and at least 200 soldiers inside. And something else, Hana added, studying her scanner with a frown. Life signs. Thousands of them, but they are not Kelthari. Captain Tay leaned over her shoulder. What are they? Slaves. The station uses slave labor for processing. They come from many different species. The team fell silent. They had known about Kelthari slavery in theory, but seeing the evidence, knowing that thousands of beings were trapped in that station, working until they died, changed something. Our mission is to destroy the station, Una said carefully. Not to save slaves. I know our mission, Tay replied. His voice was hard. Dock the ship. We will figure out the rest. They landed in a cargo bay and emerged in stolen Kelthari armor. Dr. Hana had modified the suits to fit human bodies. From a distance, they looked like any other soldiers. The interior of the station was exactly as horrifying as they had imagined. Slaves of a dozen species worked in massive processing chambers. Their bodies thin and broken, Kelthari overseers walked among them with electric whips, striking anyone who moved too slowly. The air smelled of chemicals and death. Private Jin Su's hands shook as they walked through the processing floor. A small alien child, barely more than a baby, reached toward her through the bars of a holding cage. Its eyes were huge and sad. Keep moving, Wu Dai said quietly. We cannot help them if we are dead. They reached the central computer core without incident. Dr. Hana connected to the system and began downloading everything. Patrol schedules, fleet positions, communication codes. Meanwhile, Una planted explosive charges on the main reactor. Charges set, Una reported. We have 30 minutes before detonation. Captain Tay stood at the observation window, looking down at the processing floor below. Thousands of slaves. Thousands of innocent beings. In 30 minutes, they would all be dead. No, he said finally. Una turned. Captain, we are not leaving them. We came here to hurt the Kelthari, and we will. But we are not murderers. We do not kill innocents to win a war. Captain, freeing the slaves will alert the entire station. We will have to fight our way out. The odds of survival drop significantly. Tay looked at his team. Wu Dai's face was unreadable. Jinsu was crying silently, but she nodded. Hana's fingers had stopped moving on her keyboard. I did not join this war to become like them, Tay said. We are human. We fight for something. Otherwise, what is the point? Lieutenant Una Park was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Understood, Captain. I will adjust the plan. They moved fast. Dr. Hana accessed the station's internal systems and unlocked every cage, every cell, every holding area. Alarms began to scream. Kelthari soldiers scrambled to respond, Captain Tay's voice echoed through the station's speaker system, translated by Hana's program. Attention all slaves. This is the human resistance. We are here to free you. Go to the cargo bays. Take any ship you can. Fight back. For a moment, nothing happened. The slaves had been broken for so long that freedom seemed impossible. Then one Norvani stood up. He grabbed a tool and smashed it into the head of his overseer. The Kelthari fell. It was like a spark in dry grass. Throughout the station, slaves rose up. They were weak and untrained, but there were thousands of them, and they had nothing left to lose. Kelthari soldiers fell beneath waves of desperate bodies. Weapons were seized. Doors were broken. The Iron Wolves cut a path through the chaos toward the cargo bays. Sergeant Wude led the way, his rifle thundering. Captain Tay covered the rear, his pistol never missing. Private Jin Su treated wounded slaves as they ran, pressing bandages into hands and shouting instructions. A massive Kelthari warrior blocked their path. He was larger than the others, a commander with decorated armor and a blade in each of his 4 hands. He roared and charged. Wude met him head-on. The fight was brutal and fast. The alien's blades cut deep, slicing through Wude's armor. But the sergeant did not fall. He pushed forward, firing point-blank into the alien's chest, until the commander finally collapsed. Wu! Jinsu rushed to his side. His left arm was nearly severed. Blood poured onto the metal floor. I can still walk, Wude said through gritted teeth. Keep moving. They reached the cargo bay. Slaves were flooding into transport ships, fighting over controls, lifting off into space. Some ships crashed into each other. Some exploded. But many escaped. Dozens of vessels carrying hundreds of freed slaves. Everyone on the ship, Tay ordered. We are leaving. Their modified cruiser lifted off just as the reactor charges detonated. The explosion was massive. A ball of fire that consumed the entire station. Processing Center 12, the pride of the Kelthari supply network, ceased to exist. As they flew away, Hana intercepted Kelthari communications. The aliens were screaming in confusion and rage. A station destroyed. 1,000 soldiers dead. Slaves scattered across the sector, and one message, repeated over and over. The humans did this. The humans are here. On their ship, Jin Su worked desperately to save Wude's arm. The big sergeant lay on a medical table, his face pale but calm. Will he live? Tay asked. He will live, Jin Su replied. But I do not know about the arm. Wude opened his eyes. I have another arm. Stop worrying. Despite the horror of the day, Tay felt something he had not expected, pride. They had done something important. Not just destroying a station, but showing the galaxy what humanity stood for. They fought not just to survive, but to free. Lieutenant Una Park approached him. We need to hit the other 2 stations before the Kelthari can reinforce them. Are we still proceeding? See. Tay looked at his wounded sergeant, his exhausted team, their damaged ship. They were deep in enemy territory with no backup and no way home. The smart choice was to retreat, but they were not here to make smart choices. They were here to win. Yes, he said. We continue. 2 more stations. 2 more strikes. Then we find a way home. Oh, behind them, the wreckage of Processing Center 12 spread across the void, and throughout the sector, freed slaves carried a message to anyone who would listen. The humans were coming, and they brought freedom with their fire. The Kelthari Empire was burning, not with fire, but with rebellion. On 17 different worlds, slave uprisings had begun. The story of the humans spread like a disease through the conquered species. A small team had infiltrated Kelthari space. They had destroyed 3 processing stations. They had freed thousands of slaves. They had proven that the masters could bleed. High Prelate Voran sat in his throne room, surrounded by reports of disaster. His gray skin had turned pale with rage. His 4 hands trembled. 3 stations destroyed, Commander Dral reported, kneeling before the throne. 17 rebellions. 4 patrol fleets ambushed by their own cargo ships. and the humans escaped our territory completely. Escaped? Voron's voice was deadly quiet. How? They used our own jump gates. They had our codes. They knew our patrol routes. By the time we realized what was happening, they were gone. Voron stood slowly. He walked down from his throne and approached Draal. The commander did not move, did not breathe. I gave you one command, Voron said. Destroy Earth. How difficult can it be to destroy one small planet? My prelate, the humans are more capable than we anticipated. Their weapons, their tactics, their willingness to sacrifice. It is unlike anything we have faced. Then we will face them with everything we have. Voron turned to his war council. Assemble the entire military. Every ship. Every soldier. Every weapon. I want the largest fleet in our history gathered at the edge of human space. Ambassador Lyra stepped forward. My prelate, if we send the entire military to Earth, our other territories will be undefended. The rebellions will grow. We could lose everything we have built. We will lose nothing. Once Earth is destroyed, the rebellions will end. Hope will die. The galaxy will remember why they fear us. Lyra bowed her head. She knew there was no point in arguing. The prelate had made his decision. The Kelthari would gamble their entire empire on destroying humanity. 2,000 warships began to assemble. It was the largest fleet ever created. Ships from every corner of the empire converged on a single point. Their weapons could crack planets. Their soldiers numbered in the millions. Nothing in the galaxy could stand against them, and they were all heading for Earth. On Earth, Admiral Sung Ho received the intelligence report with a grim expression. Satellite networks and hidden probes had tracked the enemy gathering. The numbers were clear. 2,000 ships, he said to the War Council. We have 150. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what those numbers meant. Can we build more? The Chinese general asked. Not in time. They will be here in 3 weeks. Reinforcements from our colonies? Already called back. It will not be enough. Admiral Sung looked at the faces around the table. Fear was there, yes. But also, determination. These were humans who had survived the first attack. They would not surrender now. We cannot match their numbers, Sung said. So we will not try. We will fight smart. We will use every advantage we have. And we will make them pay for every meter of our space. The door opened, and Captain Han Tae walked in. He was thinner than before. His eyes had dark circles beneath them. Behind him came Lieutenant Yuna Park, Sergeant Wu Dai with his arm in a regeneration sleeve, Private Jin Su, and Dr. Hana Kang. The entire room stood. These were the heroes of the hour. The soldiers who had struck the Kelthari in their own territory. The warriors who had started a galactic rebellion. Captain Tae, Admiral Sung said warmly. Welcome home. It is good to be home, Admiral. Though I hear we will not have long to rest. No. The enemy is coming. All of them. Tae nodded. He had expected nothing less. Then we will be ready. For the next 3 weeks, Earth prepared for the final battle. Weapons platforms were moved into position around the planet. Fleets were organized into defensive formations. Every human who could fight was given a weapon and a purpose. Captain Tae spent his days training new soldiers and his nights studying enemy tactics. Lieutenant Yuna Park worked with the War Council to develop a battle plan that might give them a chance. Sergeant Wu Dai, his arm slowly healing, taught close combat to anyone who would listen. Private Jinsu organized medical teams across the planet. Dr. Hana Kang cracked Kelthari communication codes, giving them precious intelligence about enemy movements. On the night before the battle, Tae stood on a hill outside the secret base, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, death was coming. 2,000 ships, millions of soldiers, the power to end worlds. Yuna found him there, as she always did. You should rest, she said. So should you. She stood beside him, looking at the same stars. Do you think we can win? No, Tae admitted. Not with numbers. Not with firepower. But winning is not always about those things. Then what is it about? He turned to look at her. It is about making them afraid. It is about showing them that some things cannot be conquered. Even if we fall, the idea of us will remain. Every slave in the galaxy knows our name now. They know that someone fought back, that will not die with us. Yuna was quiet for a long moment. That is either very inspiring or very depressing. Maybe both. She almost smiled. Captain, there is something I have wanted to say, in case we do not get another chance. What is it? I have served under many commanders. None of them made me believe we could do the impossible. You do. Whatever happens tomorrow, I am proud to have followed you. Under Contam, Tay did not know what to say. He had never been good with words, so he simply nodded and said, "Thank you, Lieutenant. The feeling is mutual." Tay did not know what to say. The next morning, alarms began to sound across Earth. The enemy fleet had arrived. Admiral Sung Ho stood in the command center, watching the holographic display fill with red dots. 2,000 ships, each one larger than the biggest human vessel. They blocked out the stars. High Prelate Voron appeared on every screen, his ancient face twisted with triumph. "People of Earth," he said, "you have resisted longer than any species before you. You have caused us great trouble. But now it ends. Surrender, and I will make your deaths quick. Fight, and I will burn your world for 1,000 years. Choose." Admiral Sung looked at the faces of his officers. He saw no fear, only determination. He opened the communication channel. "This is Admiral Sung Ho of Earth. I have a message for High Prelate Voron." The entire planet held its breath. "We are humanity. We have fought and killed each other for our entire existence. We have survived ice ages, diseases, and our own stupidity. We do not kneel, we do not surrender, and we do not fear death." He paused, then spoke the words that would echo through history. "Come and take our world, if you can." The communication ended. Voron's face disappeared from the screens, and the largest battle in human history began. Space above Earth became a storm of fire and metal. The Kelthari fleet advanced in a massive wave, their weapons lighting up the darkness. Human defense platforms fired back, tungsten rods and nuclear missiles streaking through the void. Ships exploded on both sides. Debris filled the space between the moon and Earth like deadly rain. Admiral Sung Ho stood in the command center, giving orders with calm precision even as the world shook around him. Focus fire on their lead ships. Force them to spread out. Buy time. The human fleet was outnumbered, outgunned, but not outfought. Every ship made the Kelthari pay. Every platform took a dozen enemies with it. The aliens had expected quick victory. Instead, they found a wall of fire, but it was not enough. Slowly, inevitably, the Kelthari pushed forward. For every ship they lost, humans lost 3. The math was clear. Earth could not win this battle through normal means, which was why Captain Han Tay was not in the battle. He was behind it. A small shuttle moved through the chaos, dodging debris and weapons fire. Inside, Captain Tay piloted with desperate skill, while Lieutenant Yuna Park monitored enemy communications. "The flagship is directly ahead," Yuna reported. 2 kilometers long, heaviest shields in their fleet. "And that is where Voron is commanding from." "Then that is where we are going." Dr. Hana Kang had identified a weakness in the flagship's design. The shield generator was powered by a central core that could be destroyed from inside. If they could reach it, they could bring down the shields. And without shields, even the mightiest ship could be destroyed. It was a suicide mission. Everyone knew it, but it was their only chance. Private Jin Su sat in the back, her medical kit ready. Sergeant Wu Dai checked his weapon, his regenerated arm still stiff but functional. Neither of them had hesitated when Tay asked for volunteers. "Approaching the hangar bay," Tay announced. "This is going to be rough." The shuttle crashed through the flagship's hangar shields and skidded across the metal floor, throwing sparks and fire. Kelthari soldiers scrambled for weapons, But the Iron Wolves were already moving. Tay and his team burst from the shuttle with weapons blazing. The aliens fell before they could organize. Within seconds, the hangar was secure. "Move," Tay ordered. "We do not have much time before they send reinforcements." They ran through corridors that seemed designed for giants. The ceiling was high, the doors were wide, and everything was built for creatures with 4 arms. But humans were adaptable. They kept moving. The first major resistance came at a checkpoint. 50 Kelthari soldiers in full combat armor, their weapons trained on the corridor. Behind them was the path to the shield generator. "Too many," Jinsu whispered. "Not for me," Wude said. He stepped forward before anyone could stop him. The big sergeant charged directly at the enemy line. His rifle fired so fast it sounded like thunder. Kelthari fell, but more kept shooting. Energy bolts burned through his armor. His flesh. Still he kept coming. "Cover him!" Tay shouted. Yuna and Tay provided covering fire while Jinsu tried to pull Wude back. But the sergeant would not retreat. He reached the enemy line and crashed into them like a human bomb, fighting with fists and knife when his rifle ran empty. By the time the corridor was clear, Wude was on the ground. His chest was burned almost black. His breathing was shallow and wet. "Go," he said weakly. "Finish the mission." "We are not leaving you," Jinsu said, tears streaming down her face. "You have to." Wude grabbed her arm with surprising strength. "I will hold them here. When they come, I will slow them down. Go. Win this war." Captain Tay looked at his friend, his brother in arms. There was nothing he could say. No words that could capture what Wude had meant to him. "It has been an honor, Sergeant." "The honor was mine, Captain. Now go." They left him there, propped against the wall with a pistol in his hand and a pile of Kelthari weapons at his feet. Jinsu refused to stop crying as they ran. But she kept moving. There was no time for grief. They reached the shield generator room. It was massive, filled with pulsing energy cores and alien machinery. And it was guarded. High Prelate Voron stood in the center of the room. He was even more terrifying in person. Tall, ancient, covered in scars from 1,000 battles. His forearms held bladed weapons that gleamed with dark energy. His eyes burned with hatred. "Humans," he said slowly. "You came to me. How convenient." "We came to end you," Tay replied. Voron laughed. It was a sound like bones breaking. "End me? I have ruled for 3,000 years. I have conquered 200 species. I am immortal. I am a god. Gods can die. Let me show you." Tay attacked first. His movements were fast, brutal, efficient. But Voron was faster. One of his arms blocked the attack, while another swung a blade that nearly took Tay's head off. Yuna opened fire, but Voron's personal shields absorbed the shots. He gestured casually, and a pulse of energy threw her across the room. She hit the wall hard and did not get up. "Yuna!" Jinsu rushed to her side. Tay faced Voron alone. The alien circled him slowly, enjoying the moment. "You are impressive. For an insect. Your species has caused me more trouble than any other. But it ends now. I will personally tear your world apart. Every human will die, screaming, and I will make you watch." Tay knew he could not defeat Voron in combat. The alien was too strong, too fast, too experienced. But he did not need to win. He just needed to buy time. "Maybe," Tay said. "But first you have to catch me." He ran. Not toward the door, but toward the shield generator core. Voron realized too late what he intended. Dr. Hana Kang, forgotten in the chaos, had reached the generator controls. Her fingers flew across the alien interface. 10 seconds, she shouted. Voron roared and charged at her. Tay intercepted him, throwing himself at the alien's legs. They crashed to the floor together, rolling and fighting. 5 seconds. Voron's blade plunged into Tay's shoulder. Pain exploded through his body. But he held on, pinning the alien's other arms. 2 seconds. "You will die for nothing," Voron screamed. 1 second. The generator exploded. Not a big explosion, but enough to destroy the delicate systems that powered the shields. Throughout the flagship, lights flickered, and the massive energy barrier that protected the ship from harm disappeared. Admiral Sung Ho saw it immediately. All ships, focus fire on the flagship now! Every human weapon turned toward Voron's command ship. Railguns fired, missiles launched, nuclear warheads detonated against the unprotected hull. Inside the ship, the world was coming apart. Explosions ripped through corridors. Fire consumed entire sections. And in the shield generator room, Captain Han Te lay bleeding on the floor, while High Prelate Voron stood over him. "You have doomed yourself," Voron said. "But you have not stopped me. I will survive this. I will rebuild. And I will have my revenge." Te looked up at the ancient monster, blood flowing from his wound. He smiled. "You still do not understand, do you? We are human. We do not fight because we will win. We fight because we must. And even if I die here, you have already lost. The galaxy knows your name now. They know you can be hurt. They know you can be beaten. That idea will never die." The ship shuddered again. More explosions. The ceiling began to crack. Voron looked around at his dying flagship. His dying empire. His dying dreams. And for the first time in 3,000 years, he felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. "What are you?" he whispered. Captain Han Te closed his eyes. "We are human. And we never kneel." The flagship broke apart in a ball of fire visible from Earth's surface. The largest ship in the Kelthari fleet was gone, and with it, their leader, their command structure, and their will to fight. The remaining enemy ships began to scatter. The sky above Earth burned with the light of dying ships. The Kelthari fleet, once the mightiest force in the galaxy, was breaking apart. Some ships tried to retreat. Some surrendered. Some fought to the death in desperate, pointless battles. Without High Prelate Voron's command, without their flagship's coordination, they were no longer an army. They were chaos. Admiral Sung Ho watched from the command center as human forces pressed their advantage. His face showed nothing, but his heart was pounding. "The flagship is destroyed," an officer reported. "No life signs detected." For a moment, the old admiral closed his eyes. Captain Han Te, Lieutenant Yuna Park, Sergeant Wu Dai, Private Jin Su, Dr. Hana Kang. They had given everything. "Focus on the remaining enemy ships," Sung ordered, his voice steady. "Accept surrenders where offered. Destroy those who continue to fight." The battle lasted for 6 more hours. By the end, over 1,500 Kelthari ships had been destroyed or captured. The rest had fled into deep space, scattered and broken. Earth's fleet was crippled, reduced to barely 40 operational vessels. But they had survived. They had won. As the sun rose over the Pacific Ocean, rescue teams searched the debris field around the destroyed flagship. The chances of finding survivors were almost zero. The explosion had been massive. The wreckage was spread across thousands of kilometers, but humans had never cared much about chances. A rescue shuttle detected a faint signal coming from a piece of debris. The pilot changed course, not expecting to find anything. What she found made her cry. A Kelthari escape pod, damaged and barely functional, drifting through the wreckage. Inside were 3 humans. Captain Han Te was unconscious, his shoulder wrapped in emergency bandages made from torn clothing. Lieutenant Yuna Park was awake, but barely. Her body covered in burns and cuts, and Private Jin Su was somehow still alert, holding both of them, refusing to let go. "We need medical teams," the pilot shouted into her radio. "I have survivors. I have the Iron Wolves." When Captain Te opened his eyes, he was in a hospital bed on Earth. The room was white and quiet. Sunlight came through the window. Real sunlight. Earth sunlight. "Welcome back, Captain." He turned his head slowly. Admiral Sung Ho sat beside his bed, looking older than Te had ever seen him. "We won?" Te asked, his voice rough. "We won," The Kelthari fleet is destroyed. Voron is dead. The war is over. Tay closed his eyes. He thought about Wu Dai, dying alone in a corridor, holding off an army. He thought about Dr. Hana Kang, last seen running toward the generator controls as the ship exploded around her. Heroes who would never see this sunrise. The others? Lieutenant Park is recovering. She will be fine. Private Jin Su has minor injuries. She saved both your lives, pulling you to an escape pod during the explosion. And Sergeant Wu? Dr. Kang? Admiral Sung's silence was answer enough. Tay felt something break inside him. Not his body, which was already broken enough. Something deeper. He had led those people. He had promised to bring them home. And he had failed. They died as heroes. Sung said quietly. The entire galaxy will remember their names. That is not enough. No, it never is. But it is all we can give them now. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The sun moved across the sky. The world continued to spin. Finally, Admiral Sung stood. Rest, Captain. When you are recovered, there is much work to be done. The Kelthari Empire is collapsing. The species they enslaved are rising up across the galaxy, and they are all looking to Earth for leadership. Leadership? We barely survived. That is exactly why they trust us. We did not seek to conquer. We did not fight for power. We fought for survival and freedom. That makes us different from every empire that came before. Sung walked to the door, then paused. The galaxy is watching us. Captain, what we do next will define humanity's place in the stars. 3 months later, Captain Han Tay stood in the Great Hall of the United Earth Council. He wore his dress uniform, decorated with medals he did not feel he deserved. Beside him stood Lieutenant Yuna Park, still recovering from her injuries, and Private Jin Su, who had been promoted to sergeant for her actions on the flagship. 2 empty chairs sat nearby, reserved for those who could not be there. Sergeant Wu Dai, Dr. Hana Kang. Their sacrifice would never be forgotten. The hall was filled with representatives from every nation on Earth. But more importantly, it was filled with visitors from across the galaxy, ambassadors from the Norvani, the first species to successfully revolt against the Kelthari, representatives from the free colonies, former slave worlds that had declared independence, delegations from a dozen other species, all of them looking at the small blue planet that had changed everything. Admiral Sung Ho addressed the assembly. We did not ask for this war. We did not seek conflict with the stars. When the Kelthari came to our world, they expected us to kneel. They expected us to beg for mercy. They expected us to be like every other species they had conquered. He paused, looking at the faces around the room. They were wrong. We are humanity. We have spent our entire existence fighting, struggling, surviving. We have made terrible mistakes and committed great crimes against ourselves, but we have also created beauty, discovered truth, and reached for the stars. We are flawed and stubborn, and sometimes foolish, but we never give up. We never surrender, and we never kneel. The applause was thunderous. Humans and aliens alike stood and cheered. It was a new era, a new beginning. Later, as the celebrations continued, Captain Tay stood alone on a balcony overlooking the city. The lights stretched to the horizon. Millions of lives going on as they always had. Somewhere out there, children were playing, families were gathering, people were falling in love. Life continued. That was what they had fought for. Yuna found him there, as she always did. You are missing the party, she said. I am not much for parties. She stood beside him, looking at the same view. What are you thinking about? Wu, Hana, all the others who did not make it. They would be proud of what we accomplished. Would they? Tay turned to face her. We killed so many. We lost so much. Is it really a victory if the cost is so high? Yuna was quiet for a moment. I think they would say it was not about victory. It was about choice. The Kelthari wanted to take away our choice, our freedom, our future. We fought to keep those things. And we succeeded. That is what matters. You always know what to say. One of my many talents. Despite everything, Tay smiled. It was a small smile, tired and sad, but real. What happens now? What? Now we rebuild. We help the freed species establish themselves. We create something new. Something better than what came before. That sounds like a lot of work. It will be. But we are human. We are good at work. From inside the hall, music started playing. People were dancing, celebrating, enjoying a moment of peace after so much war. Jin Su appeared in the doorway, waving at them to come inside. Are you coming? Yuna asked. Tay looked up at the stars. They were no longer a threat. They were a promise. Somewhere out there were new worlds, new species, new possibilities. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, and this was only the beginning. Yes, he said finally, I am coming. They walked back into the light together. Behind them, the stars watched, cold and eternal. They had seen empires rise and fall for billions of years. They had seen species reach for greatness and crumble to dust. But they had never seen anything quite like humanity. Stubborn, fragile, violent, creative, compassionate, terrifying. The galaxy had begged for mercy. Earth had dispatched its warriors. And nothing would ever be the same.